Clara Matthews thought her life as the wife of billionaire Richard Matthews was perfect until she fell for their new bodyguard, unaware he was secretly working with her husband to expose every betrayal. Clara Matthews lived a life that many would call perfect. As the wife of billionaire businessman Richard Matthews, she resided in a sprawling mansion perched atop a hill, overlooking a city that sparkled like diamonds at night. Her days were filled with indulgence, luxurious cars, private jets, designer wardrobes, and exclusive parties attended by the world's elite. Yet beneath the dazzling surface, Clara felt a quiet emptiness. The house was beautiful, but it often felt cold and silent. Her husband, though generous and powerful, was distant. Business trips, meetings with world leaders, and endless phone calls kept him away from home, leaving her to navigate the opulent but lonely halls of their estate. Clara's friends envied her lifestyle, never realizing that wealth brought its own burdens. Invitations to lavish events masked the isolation she often felt behind the polished smiles and sparkling champagne. She longed for excitement, for a connection that went beyond material luxury. The attention she craved wasn't in her social circle or in the meticulously curated life Richard had built for her. Deep down, Clara felt trapped in a golden cage, surrounded by riches yet deprived of true companionship. Her mind wandered to fantasies of danger, passion, and unpredictability, things money could not buy. She imagined a life where someone saw her for who she truly was, where her desires mattered more than etiquette or appearances. Little did she know, the change she longed for was closer than she imagined. A new presence was about to enter her life, someone who would awaken emotions she thought were long buried. But the excitement she anticipated came with a shadow, a hidden agenda that would intertwine her fate with secrets, lies, and betrayals she could never have foreseen. The glittering world she knew was about to fracture, revealing dangers hidden beneath the luxury she had always trusted. ChatGPT said, Richard Matthews had recently decided to hire a new bodyguard, a man who would not only protect Clara, but also ensure the safety of their sprawling estate. Lucas Hayes was tall, well-built, and carried himself with a quiet confidence that immediately commanded attention. From the moment he arrived, there was something about him that set him apart from the other staff. His eyes were sharp, always observing, yet he moved with a calm, almost invisible grace that made his presence both reassuring and intriguing. Clara noticed him instantly, drawn not just to his appearance, but to the subtle way he seemed to understand her moods without being asked. Lucas was attentive without being intrusive. He anticipated her needs, offering small gestures of kindness, a door held at the right moment, a glass of water when she returned from a long day, or a suggestion for an outing she hadn't considered. It was the kind of attention she hadn't realized she was craving. Clara, used to the grandeur of her life, but not its intimacy, began to feel a connection with Lucas that went beyond the typical employer-employee relationship. She noticed how he listened, really listened, when she spoke of trivial frustrations or fleeting dreams. The conversations were brief, yet they left her feeling understood in ways her husband never had. What Clara did not know was that Lucas was far more than a bodyguard. His role extended beyond protection. He was part of a carefully orchestrated plan. Every action, every word, every glance was being noted, analyzed, and reported. Lucas had been hired not just to watch over Clara, but to observe her, to uncover truths she believed were hidden. The man she was beginning to trust and admire carried secrets that could shatter her life, secrets that would soon surface with consequences she could never have imagined. As days turned into weeks, Clara found herself increasingly drawn to Lucas. His presence was magnetic, a quiet force that seemed to pull her into moments of excitement and vulnerability she hadn't felt in years. There was a thrill in his subtle attentions, the way he remembered her preferences, anticipated her moods, and offered small comforts that made her feel seen in a world where she often felt invisible. Every interaction left her heart racing in ways she hadn't expected. The mansion, once a place of routine and silence, began to feel alive with a dangerous energy whenever Lucas was near. Clara began to seek him out in moments of loneliness. She found excuses to linger in the garden while he monitored the perimeter or to request his help with errands, allowing conversations to stretch longer than necessary. Lucas had an uncanny way of making her feel special without overstepping boundaries. The trust she placed in him grew quietly but steadily, building a connection that felt intimate yet forbidden. Her mind spun with a mix of excitement and guilt, emotions she had long buried beneath wealth and routine. Unseen by Clara, Lucas was meticulous in his work. Every gesture she made, every smile or sigh, was being recorded and transmitted to Richard. He carefully documented her growing attraction, noting patterns and inconsistencies in her behavior. Each tender moment she shared with him, every secret thought she confessed, even those she believed were safe, was quietly cataloged. The very man she was beginning to desire was also her observer, her betrayer in disguise. The tension between desire and deception created a dangerous undercurrent in the mansion. Clara's attraction to Lucas was genuine, fueled by loneliness and longing, yet it was being manipulated, turning her feelings into a trap she could not see. She was stepping closer to a precipice, unaware that every step she took brought her nearer to a revelation that would shatter her world entirely. Richard Matthews had suspected for months that Clara was hiding parts of her life from him. Subtle changes in her behavior, secretive phone calls, and unexplained absences had raised red flags he could not ignore. Rather than confront her directly, he devised a plan that required patience, precision, and a careful understanding of human nature. The arrival of Lucas Hayes was the first step in that plan, a carefully chosen man who could observe, influence, and report back without arousing suspicion. Lucas was more than a bodyguard. He was an agent in a calculated strategy to uncover the truth. Richard briefed him thoroughly, ensuring he understood every nuance of his mission. Lucas was to gain Clara's trust, learn her secrets, and report everything in detail. It was a role that required charm, restraint, and intelligence. Lucas moved seamlessly into the household, balancing the line between protector and confidant, drawing Clara closer while carefully recording every interaction. Every smile she offered, every laugh, every sigh of longing was being noted. Clara, blinded by loneliness and curiosity, had no idea that her growing feelings for Lucas were part of a meticulously orchestrated plan. She believed the attraction was mutual, that the connection she felt was genuine. Meanwhile, Richard received detailed updates, each one adding pieces to a puzzle that revealed Clara's hidden desires and choices. He watched as Lucas skillfully navigated the delicate balance of attention and discretion, creating situations that encouraged Clara to open up, all while keeping his true purpose concealed. The mansion, once a place of opulence and routine, became a stage for deception. Richard's plan relied on patience and precision, and Lucas executed it flawlessly. Clara was unaware that every glance, every fleeting moment of intimacy, was being used to expose her. In her search for connection, she had unknowingly entered a game she could not win, a dangerous dance of trust and bet. Clara's behavior began to change in ways that did not go unnoticed, even by her closest friends. She seemed distracted during gatherings, checking her phone with nervous energy, slipping away from conversations, and canceling plans without explanation. Her once vibrant demeanor was now tinged with secrecy and restlessness. Friends whispered behind her back, sensing that something was amiss, though none could pinpoint exactly what had caused the shift. Clara herself tried to ignore the feeling that she was being pulled in two directions, toward the excitement Lucas provided and the world of wealth and expectation that had always defined her life. Meanwhile, Lucas continued to fulfill his dual role with precision. Every text, every fleeting touch, every glance exchanged with Clara was carefully observed and reported to Richard. He noted patterns in her behavior, documenting not only her attraction to him, but also moments of vulnerability, doubt, and secrecy. Each interaction was a piece of a puzzle that painted a picture of Clara far more complex than her outward appearance suggested. Richard, reviewing these updates, began to see the full scope of her desires and the risks they posed to the life he had built. The tension in the mansion grew almost imperceptibly. Clara was increasingly aware of a thrill in Lucas's presence, a danger she could neither define nor resist. She began to take risks she would never have considered before, lingering in places where she could be alone with him, sharing thoughts and emotions she had never voiced. The mansion, once a place of comfort and luxury, now felt charged with secrecy and unspoken tension. What Clara did not realize was that every action she believed was private was being catalogued with precision. The attraction she felt, the trust she placed in Lucas, and the risks she was beginning to take were all part of a carefully constructed web of observation. She was moving closer to a revelation that would not only shock her, but also change the course of her life forever. One evening, Clara returned to the mansion after a long day of errands and social engagements, expecting the familiar calm of her home. Instead, she found an envelope lying on her bed, stark against the crisp white sheets. Her name was written on it in neat, precise handwriting. Curiosity and unease battled within her as she picked it up and carefully opened it. Inside were photographs, intimate, private moments she had shared with Lucas. Each image captured gestures and glances she had assumed were unnoticed, moments she had thought were hers alone. Shock and fear gripped her as she realized the depth of exposure. At first, Clara assumed Richard had discovered everything through some hidden surveillance, but the contents of the envelope suggested a far more deliberate orchestration. Each photograph was accompanied by notes detailing when and where they had been taken, almost as if someone had been anticipating her every move. The realization hit her like a sudden storm. Lucas had not been simply a bodyguard, but a carefully positioned spy, working in coordination with her husband. The attraction she had felt, the connection she had cherished, had all been a manipulation, a game she had unknowingly stepped into. The betrayal was suffocating. Every touch, every whispered word of comfort, every moment of intimacy now felt tainted by deception. Clara's world of luxury and control, which she had once considered untouchable, began to feel fragile and dangerous. Her life, built on wealth and appearances, was now unraveling before her eyes, revealing hidden motives and shadowed intentions. The envelope was more than evidence. It was a turning point. Clara realized that she had been dancing on a stage she did not even know existed, watched by two men whose loyalty to each other surpassed any loyalty she might have imagined. The line between desire and danger had been crossed, and the consequences were only beginning to unfold, threatening to destroy everything she had once. Richard Matthews waited until the following evening to confront Clara, choosing the moment with careful precision. He entered the room with the calm, controlled demeanor that had earned him a reputation in business and society. Clara, still reeling from the envelope of photographs, felt a surge of fear mixed with anger. She knew this confrontation was inevitable, but nothing could have prepared her for the depth of revelation that awaited her. Richard laid out the evidence with clinical precision. He revealed how he had orchestrated every step of Lucas's infiltration, how each interaction, each smile, each secret confession had been documented and reported. The man she had trusted and admired was not only a spy, but also a partner in exposing her hidden betrayals. Clara's world began to collapse as she realized the full extent of the manipulation. The luxurious mansion, the glittering parties, even the life she had believed was secure, all were overshadowed by deception and calculated control. The confrontation was more than a personal reckoning. Richard exposed not just her growing attachment to Lucas, but also hidden financial dealings she had tried to conceal. Every secret, every misstep, was now illuminated under his meticulous scrutiny. Clara felt a mixture of shame, disbelief, and betrayal. The man she had loved and desired had been part of a plan to strip away her illusions, and the husband she thought she knew had been silently orchestrating her downfall. In that moment, Clara understood that the life she had taken for granted, one of wealth, power, and influence, was not enough to protect her from the consequences of her choices. Richard's calm authority contrasted sharply with the storm of emotions raging within her. The confrontation was complete, leaving Clara exposed, powerless, and forced to confront the reality that in a world of money and control, appearances were never what they seemed. The game had ended, and she had lost. ChatGPT said. The fallout from the confrontation was swift and relentless. Within days, rumors of Clara's scandal began circulating, leaking from the social circles she had once moved through with ease. Tabloid headlines painted her as a woman betrayed by passion, exposed by the very people she had trusted most. Her name became synonymous with deception and scandal, the kind of story that spread quickly, capturing public fascination and judgment alike. Clara's reputation, built over years of careful appearances and curated image, crumbled almost overnight. Meanwhile, Lucas vanished quietly, leaving no trace of his presence beyond the evidence he had gathered. His role in the intricate scheme remained largely unknown to the public, a shadowy figure who had orchestrated events from behind the scenes. Richard, on the other hand, emerged unscathed in the public eye. The press painted him as a vigilant, clever husband who had uncovered betrayal with precision and discretion. He controlled the narrative, appearing composed and justified, while Clara struggled to reclaim a sense of normalcy in a world that now scrutinized her every move. The mansion, once a symbol of wealth and security, now felt empty and oppressive. Clara wandered its halls, haunted by the knowledge that every moment she had shared with Lucas had been recorded and manipulated. The life she had once taken for granted, the power, the luxury, the admiration of others, no longer offered comfort or protection. She faced a public and private reckoning simultaneously, forced to confront the consequences of her desires and choices. The scandal served as a harsh reminder that appearances can be deceiving and trust can be weaponized. In a world of wealth and influence, secrets rarely remain hidden, and betrayal often comes from the places one least expects. Clara had been ensnared in a game far larger than herself, one that left her exposed, humiliated, and forced to rebuild a life forever changed by manipulation and deceit. Clara Matthews was left to navigate the ruins of a life she had once thought untouchable. The mansion, with its grand halls and glittering decor, felt hollow, a constant reminder of the betrayal that had unfolded within its walls. Friends and acquaintances no longer reached out with genuine concern. Their interest was fueled by curiosity and gossip rather than compassion. Every familiar face seemed to carry judgment, and every social invitation felt like a test she was bound to fail. The wealth and privilege that had once shielded her now offered no protection from public scrutiny or private regret. In the quiet of her solitude, Clara reflected on the choices that had brought her to this point. Her attraction to Lucas, the trust she had placed in him, and the moments of passion she had believed were safe now felt like missteps that had been exploited with surgical precision. She understood, painfully, that Richard's careful orchestration had exposed her in ways she could never have anticipated. Every feeling she thought was genuine had been manipulated. Every secret she had kept had been cataloged and revealed. Yet within the devastation, there was a faint, reluctant clarity. Clara realized that wealth and luxury could never substitute for awareness, judgment, or discernment. The game of appearances, of controlling perceptions and hiding truths, had ensnared her, and only by acknowledging the reality of her circumstances could she hope to move forward. The lessons were harsh, but they were undeniable. Trust must be earned, desire can be exploited, and in a world of power and deception, nothing is ever truly as it seems. As she began the slow process of rebuilding her life, Clara carried the weight of betrayal and exposure. The mansion, the glittering social circles, even the memories of Lucas and Richard, became symbols of caution. Her story stood as a chilling testament to the dangers of manipulation, the fragility of appearances, and the inescapable consequences of choices made in the shadow of desire.